Springtime brings so many special occasions, so why not spring into Dewey's for all your celebration needs? From custom, unique cakes to balloons and party tableware to the perfect gift, Dewey's is your one-stop shop in the Triad. Even if you don't have a big event on the horizon, it's always a great day to stop by your local Dewey's Bakery, especially on Mondays for a free Cake Square Day. No purchase necessary and available all year round at any of their Triad area locations in Winston-Salem at Thruway Shopping Center and Renolda Manor, and in Greensboro at the Friendly Shopping Center. Need to place that order now? Visit local.deweys.com, and as a listener of the Triad Podcast Network, you'll receive 25% off by using the code PODCAST. Our friends at Dewey's are always finding great ways to give back to our local community, providing millions of dollars to nonprofits. Your organization can also partner with Dewey's to raise money. Just email cake@deweys.com to learn more. Don't miss the chance to make your event even more special with an order at local.deweys.com. Use the promo code PODCAST for 25% off. Dewey's. Celebrate every day.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, it is a great day, not just because we are talking to Blake Ginther from the Ginther Group for our real estate podcast, but Blake, today, the day of our recording, is the first official day of spring. We made it. Happy spring, my man.
It is. You're right. It's fortunately, it started feeling like spring a few weeks ago, but it is technically. You're right. Happy spring.
So how is it feeling now in the real estate world? I mean, we know that the temperatures feel great and the pollen doesn't, but how are things feeling in the real estate world?
Better. It's definitely picking up. With spring break being early this year, I do think that kind of, for Forsyth County schools, that and a lot of the neighboring counties too, it might have played a factor a little bit, like right when it was kind of picking up. Kind of the whole city got quiet, as it often does when Forsyth County schools are out. So that maybe played a little bit of a factor, but when I look back on it, I track every week how many actives and how many pendings, and it really hasn't varied. Starting in mid-February, Forsyth County has about 800 houses, and we penned about 80. 10% goes under contract almost every week. And as more trends to come on, which we're starting to see, we'll see if that picks up, which I think it will.
Yeah. So this is a time of year, right, when people say, okay, I've waited, I'm ready, it's springtime, let's get the house ready, we're ready to move and get things on the market. And one thing we discussed before we press record, and this is in a previous episode that I'll try to link to in the show notes, but we've talked about the reasons why people sell. Right. And real quickly, without getting into that discussion, what are typically the top reasons why people sell?
Yeah. Okay. So birth, death, marriage, divorce, and honestly, job promotions and or the dark side of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so people are, if people are selling, there's a chance, not guaranteed, but there's a good chance that they are experiencing one of those things that Blake mentioned. So, but what are you seeing, Blake? Let's start with buyers. What should buyers know when you get into the springtime and maybe you see an uptick of competition out there in the marketplace?
Yeah, well, the good news is for buyers, right, is we're definitely in the time of year where the most are coming. This is the time of year where the most inventory is going to come between, March, really all the way until school lets out, which is earlier this year for Forsyth County schools. It's basically Memorial Day. So we'll see if typically it would be mid-June. So I don't know if that's going to impact it or not. But bottom line, if you're a buyer, the absolute most inventory comes usually Easter-ish, which this year is late, so mid-April.
Yeah, that's interesting what you said, because you made mention of this with spring break, and this is the first year that we'll talk about Forsyth County, but this is the first year that Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools have moved to a new school calendar. So everything is pushed up 2 weeks. So the school year started 2 weeks earlier, spring break was earlier, and as you mentioned, the school year is going to end earlier, before Memorial Day, as opposed to mid-June.
Yep.
Spring doesn't start earlier. Right. So are we in a smaller window of time that you find this where the market is really hot, but it's in a smaller window of time right now?
Maybe, possibly. it honestly, it's so and I said this before we hit record, we're in this interesting environment where, and people just don't have DeLoreans, right? They don't have the time machines to go back and remember how it was pre-COVID. But we're definitely in this environment where people think that the average days on market of 6 weeks, well, what's wrong with the house? Well, I mean, before COVID, it was like, it was 90 to 120 days was the average.
Yeah.
And that was better than what it was when the market was even softer. So, and I like this. Somebody said this, and I'm like, I'm going to coin that. We are still in a softening market from what COVID was, but it is not soft, right? And that's what buyers need to hear over and over and over again. It is a softening market, but it is not soft. And the core there is to say, buyers, we're seeing this all the time, where buyers are coming in with not necessarily a low-ish offer, but definitely for sure not an acceptable offer. Somebody comes along and comes in with an acceptable offer, and then bam, lo and behold, the buyer says, wait, and it's gone. And that's happening a good bit. And it just, Adam, it makes complete sense. There are a lot of people who are like kind of lukewarm on the idea of moving, and it's still kind of challenging for them to accomplish the goal. Then they probably won't move.
Yeah. So your advice then is, if you like the home, you need to show your love for the home if you're a buyer, because this goes back to something we've talked about in previous episodes. It's like, if you think you're weird, you're not that weird.
I know. I feel like I said that on every podcast. Yeah. But let me give you like an actual example if you're listening to this. The average house, in our market is, let's just say it's 350. It's a little below that, but let's just say 350. If the house is fresh on the market, you can tell they've done all the right things. The agent's like, yeah, there's actually a lot of comps. They could have priced this higher, but they could have been lower and had like a bonanza. It's priced kind of probably where it should be. So if you're a buyer and you love it, you don't have to do $10,000 due diligence or more anymore. You don't, unless they call for highest and best. And then if you're able to and comfortable, you could win it that way. But if I were a buyer in today's market, I would come in with a really, a solid offer of like, $348 and $4,000 in closing costs, and like a solid DD of a couple $1,000, and then heaven forbid do earnest money if the home is occupied, because that way when we go pending. And that's the other thing, is find out today's market, find out what the seller's ideal timeline is, right? Find that out, give them that if you're able to, which most buyers have flexibility in our current environment. So let's say they want to be in the home till the school sells, school's out. Well, fine. Then find that out. Close, basically, if you want to close in late, close around Memorial Day, and even give them a week to lease back, right? Or 2 weeks to lease back until early June, and you're not moving until early June. And that gives you time. A lot of buyers are wanting to sell the home they're in to qualify, or just because they don't want to keep it. And it gives you time to work it out. So these are all normal things, right? This isn't new stuff, but I do think that like that a little below asking, by the way, sellers should hear me say that, you shouldn't expect to get at or above asking in our current environment. Don't hear me say you can't do it. And we're doing it on a lot of listings, but we're not on a lot as well. And that's not, the new norm isn't full ask. Now it can be accomplished, but typically for people to get full asking or above, they probably underpriced it a little bit on purpose.
So what you're saying then from the buyer's perspective is, when you're making your offer, don't just throw a number out there. You got to be thinking about all the different things, because there's other wants that the seller has in when it comes to this. So it's not just about, a lot of it has to do with what you're offering them from a money perspective, but you can't just say, well, here's our offer. We're talking about the money and let us know.
Yep.
Requires a little bit more investigation than that.
And because it's not a soft market. In a soft market, man, buyers could just toss out offers and take days and drag their feet, right? But we're not in that soft market. And by the way, no matter what happens economically, which I think people think, well, maybe I should hold off with the economy. Honestly, that very rarely has a direct impact on real estate. I've said this a bunch on this podcast, but 6 out of the last 7 recessions have not had any impact on real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's right. There's a lot of data to back that up. So is it rare, or I guess what we're saying is, hey, don't count on it. Final and best, right? The final and best number. When people make an offer that is below asking, we don't want to say it's a low ball offer necessary, but when they're making an offer that's probably lower than what it should be and might not be taken seriously by the seller, is the buyer counting on the opportunity to be able to make an adjusted offer and a call for final and best, and maybe that just doesn't always happen?
Yes, I think that a lot of buyers, especially if they've been around in and around this market or bought in the last 5 years, that's kind of been their programming to expect, and that's definitely not how it was the prior 15 years, and not how it's going to be for. I mean, who knows? Who knows? I'm not going to speak for the future, but it's definitely not our current environment to just expect the highest and best.
Yeah. Yeah. So don't go into it thinking that it's going to happen.
Right.
Yep. Give yourself make a really solid attempt the first go around. Blake, what other advice would you give to people that is something that we talk about a lot this time of year, but maybe somebody's joining us for the first time and they're entering, or they listen passively because they haven't been in the situation where they need to make a real estate transaction, but now they're thinking about it a little more seriously this spring, and they're coming to you in this podcast for some tips of what to expect when spring rolls around, for a first timer maybe.
So, it's funny. I was just talking about this with a friend. I think that when we were in that speed-based market, strategy sessions or consultations around location, condition, size, price, really breaking down wants and needs, they mattered, but I think that they didn't happen at the level that they should have, because everything was go, 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 go. Now they matter even more, because as inventory rises, and you have more options, what's going to happen, and what we're seeing it is while you're looking at the wrong homes, the right ones are selling, and we don't have enough inventory for that to happen for too long. So first-time home buyers really just honestly, what most of them want to do is they just want to go look at houses because they're pretty and fun, and I don't blame them. And before they get too far down that path, they really should sit down and have a full-on breakdown of what they really, really want versus really, really need, and look at what that. I know that doesn't sound very fun or sexy, but it's I think very important, specifically for first timers or people who haven't bought in the last 5-6 years.
It's time to get serious about your financial future. It's never too early, but it could be too late to get started. And that's oftentimes the hardest part, getting started. How much do I save? Where do I invest? Do I save for college or retirement? How much for each? And who do I talk to about it all? Okay, we'll keep things simple for now and help you answer the last one. We recommend you begin with a local financial advisor. And that's Jennifer Johnson of Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. She'll sit down with you for a complimentary introductory consultation and go over all of your questions. Get started on the path to achieving your financial goals. Visit 3magnoliasfinancialadvisors.com or call 336-701-1600. Get comfortable with your financial future. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. Retirement, financial planning, and investments.
Securities offered through Private Client Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors and Private Client Services are not affiliated. Private Client Services is under separate ownership from any other named entity.
What I want to do now is I want to play a little game that might be helpful for the first-time home seller that's thinking about getting their home on the market this spring.
Okay.
So today is the first day of spring, as I mentioned. It's also maybe the best sports day on the calendar, the first day of the NCAA tournament, where you can just binge watch college basketball from noon to midnight on Thursday and Friday. And Blake is procrastinating. He's still got to fill out his bracket. So we're going to try to get him. We're going to try to get him out of here so that he has time to do that before the first game tips off. But Blake, we're not going to do a full bracket, but I want to ask you to do some seed lines for some things that are important when it comes to your home
Yeah.
to make it as attractive as possible, the thing that's going to matter most to buyers.
Okay.
So, what is your number one seed for something that matters most to buyers about selling a home?
So it's funny. We're back to the number one seed being cleanliness. And by the way,
Is that over? Are we factoring location into this, or am I spoiling something here?
I mean, look, condition. I would say condition. Location. We don't really. If we're talking about their desires, location is almost always the number one seed. Location,
right.
location,
Okay.
location. Right.
Yeah.
If we're talking desires, and I was thinking about this. I heard that question. I was thinking it differently. I was thinking about from a seller's perspective, but from a buyer's perspective. Location, location, location.
Okay, let's take location out of it because that's the obvious number one. That's been the number one for forever when it comes to real estate. But yeah, let's talk about, let's say, all right, you've got, pick your neighborhood, Ardmore, for example.
Right.
You got two homes on the same street. What are the things that make this home more attractive than that home? So, all right, so number one seed, cleanliness.
Well, and here's why, especially Ardmore's a great example. Old homes, not everybody loves the charm of an old home, but not everyone is mentally equipped to own an old home. They are imperfect, and that's the charm of an old home. You know, nothing points out imperfections like a dirty home, or like what it can. And buyers' minds go to all the wrong places when they see something. And that's why I used to joke, it's so not politically correct. I used to, put Tic Tacs. I would bring those, remember those Tic Tac containers? I would wrap them with OCD pills, and I would bring them to sellers, and I would say, please take these. Right? It's funny to watch you, but it's so not politically correct. Can't do that anymore. And I'll get canceled. But I still talk about it a little bit because I want people to think that way. At sellers, buyers, what the number one thing you want a buyer to say is, boy, I really am glad I'm not married to this person, but I want to buy their house. I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious when I say that. That is the accomplished goal. Right before we listed our house, I was neurotic with the magic eraser. I went to the Salvation Army, or you know what I'm trying to say, the Goodwill drop-off zone. They knew me by name. You have to be intense with upkeep. And for a second there, sellers didn't, but we're definitely back. And Ardmore's a perfect example. Good comparison because, cleanliness and I put like literally caulking or just a fresh coat of paint on where, houses move in our environment, right? Our humidity, cracking, it's super common around the moldings, and just little minor cosmetic improvements put a buyer in a different mental place.
Okay. Good number one seed and great explanation. And also nice indirect promotion for our friends at Tic Tacs.
Yeah, right. Old school, yeah. Orange Tic Tacs. Shout out.
Oh my God, that is the best. By the way, orange Tic Tacs, number one seed.
No. Yeah, number one
without
seed.
Question.
Without
question.
Come on, get out of here. There's nothing else.
So obvious. What would be your number two seed in terms of attractiveness to a buyer?
Yeah, I mean, I think number two seed is probably along a similar line, but I will say curb appeal. Curb appeal, which is the more external, more exterior version of your home. Similar thing though, right? Different but similar vein. Especially this time of year. Do you have flowers? Are the flowers in bloom? Do you have we're welcome you northerners who struggle with pine straw versus mulch. I'm sorry, you got to get over it. I did. Mulch is lovely, but your wood insects, termination companies, termite companies do not like it. So get used to going with pine straw. But honestly, Adam, curb appeal, again, sticking with Ardmore in particular, curb appeal matters tremendously. And it's in your control. No doubt, whether it's fresh painting, fresh pine straw, fresh flowers, curb appeal matters.
Okay. That's a good one. All right. I'll ask you to do 2 more seeds.
Okay.
Give me a 3 seed and a 4 seed here.
Okay. 3 seed, but as it pertains to buyers, and I think, again, sticking to the Ardmore thing, is, and this is, again, in sellers' control, by the way, is lighting. Lighting in a home can have a very strong impact with buyers' feelings towards it. This is one of the things we tell sellers is replace all your light bulbs, turn on all your lights, open up all your blinds, right? Have the, even when the day is not as sunny, if it is light in your home, it absolutely impacts the buyer's overall feel for the home.
Good one. I really like that. Okay, so we've got number 1 seed cleanliness, number 2 seed curb appeal, number 3 seed lighting. Do you have a 4 seed? This would be our, maybe not the favorite to get the home sold, but it's a dark horse candidate. It could get the job done.
So I'm going to go with, again, oh man, this is tough. I'm torn between 4th and 5th seed, and really what it is for me is,
you're the selection committee here, man. You got.
It's tough. It's tough because I'm going back and forth, vacillating with whether it's closet space, and again, Ardmore, closet space is small. How it's utilized in your preparation as an owner is, if it is literally 1 season. We're in March where it's like some days it's 40 degrees and some days it's 80. But you only, as a seller, can have 1 season in your closet. Buyers don't even look to say, do they have multi-seasons in their closet? They don't think that way. But when they open it, does it look like there's plenty of room? And by the way, like, true story, even sellers with big closets. My wife, her closet is ginormous. It's a bit of a dumpster fire. We would have to do a lot of work before my side is too. So in fact, I've been saying I would for a long time, but we're not selling ever. And so, different, but if you are, that one matters. And then the other one I was going to go with, and number the 4 or the 5 seed is minor. Honestly, kitchens still matter greatly, and appliances and backsplashes and tops. Even though buyers know they can make those improvements, we're back in a market where if they walk in and it's got, the quartz countertops or the granite that's still in style, and a fresh backsplash, and fresh stainless steel appliances, then it makes a big difference.
Okay. So you going with kitchen or closets for your 4 seed?
I think I got to go kitchen. Hearing myself say it, I got to go kitchen 4 seed, but closets are close.
Close. First team out. Closets, yep. First team out.
Yep.
That was fun, Blake. I appreciate you playing along. I'm going to let you get to your bracket now. Before we do so, tell the people how to find you and the fine friends at the Ginther Group.
Thanks, man. Thanks for doing this. So find us on the interwebs at theginthergroup.com, the GINTHER group.com, or 336-283-8689.
All right. And I know you haven't filled it out yet, but do you have a team in mind? Can you give us a little sneak peek of who you got going all the way?
I mean, I feel like I'm going to get in big trouble with people in our region if I don't say, although I'm going to make some people mad. By the way, I do have UNC going. I did do one bracket, my family bracket, where I have UNC going to the Sweet 16. I shouldn't, and I feel like that's going to be a mistake, but I do, just for those people listening. Duke it's hard not to pick Duke to go to the Final Four. I don't think they're going to win, but I do have them going to the Final Four. And I almost had all 4 SEC teams. Whoa. The SEC has some really top dogs.
Uh-huh.
And so I think if you had to put your money on a conference to win it, it would easily be the SEC. They have the most schools. And I don't know if it's going to be – my dark horse is Alabama.
Okay.
But it could easily be Florida. They're playing the best as of this moment.
All right. Sounds like you got to kind of work through this as you fill out your bracket. So.
I really don't have it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, send me a picture of it when you fill it out so that I can give you some credit or some shame, depending on how it turns out on our next podcast.
Shame. It will be shame. Every year it's shame.
All right, my friend. Enjoy the games, enjoy the spring, and we'll talk to you again next month.
Thanks, brother.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode on the Triad Podcast Network. Our mission is simple: provide information, advice, and stories about the people and places that make the North Carolina Triad such a great place to be. You can find us by searching Triad Podcast Network on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much wherever you like to listen. If you like what you heard and want to support the show and those that contribute, we would truly appreciate a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. It helps spread the word along, as do your shares on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram @Triad Podcast. To get in touch with us, simply email info@triadpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.